Hello and welcome to today's video. In this video, I'm going to be sharing my top 10 favorite movies of all time. So let's get this intro out of the way and we'll jump right in. Welcome once again, my name is Austin and this channel is all about digging deeper and going further to better understand faith and film and everything that's in between. If that sounds exciting to you, make sure you click that subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on any new content. Without further ado, let's get going with my list of my top 10 favorite movies of all time. Now, this is a list of movies that I've been working on for the past month or so of trying to get together, kind of reworking here or there and a couple of rewatches. So first, coming in at number 10, I'm going to say Sing Street. Sing Street may not be an incredibly well-known movie, but it's still one of my personal favorites. The thing that I give this movie credit for the most is just the mood it puts me in. This movie just makes me happier than I could ever be. It's a beautiful, music-filled love story of a boy meets girl, boy starts band to impress girl, and we go from there. I love the music of this movie. I love the chemistry between the main characters and the camaraderie between the band members as well and the band that he forms. All of this combined together with a great story just makes for one of my favorite music involved, but especially favorite movies of all time. And of course, I would be remiss if I did not give credit where it was due. Thank you, Josiah, one of my close friends who also watches my videos here, for introducing me to this movie just a couple of years ago. In the time you've introduced me to it, I've seen this movie like 3 times since, and every time I love it so much more. So thank you, Josiah. Next, coming in at number 9, one of the absolute funniest movies I've ever seen, we got Hot Fuzz. Hot Fuzz is a movie I watched for the first time just a few years ago, similarly to Sing Street, and it's a movie I immediately fell in love with. I love Edgar Wright and his film style and his catalog of films that he's made so far, of the ones that I've seen, and by far, Hot Fuzz is my favorite of the bunch. This movie is absolutely brilliant. The entire movie is full and jam-packed, full of setups and payoffs, one after the other, and each one is absolutely brilliant and pays off perfectly. It doesn't hinder the story in any way. All of them contribute to the greater story, while each in their own moments being just as funny. And not only is this movie an excellent comedy, it's a great action movie as well. It's kind of a homage to action movies, but the way that it blends comedy and action together with the story that it's telling is absolute brilliance. Next, coming in at number 8, one of my favorite childhood movies, Tarzan. This is the Disney animated movie that came out in 1999. I could not tell you how many times I've seen this movie because honestly I don't know, but I know it's a lot. There's many parts of this movie that I have memorized when it comes to the scenes as well as the songs. I grew up on this movie and the Phil Collins soundtrack as well. I absolutely adore everything about it, and I'm still a little bit perturbed that Disney Plus has not added a Tarzan icon. Disney, get on this. Next, coming in at number 7, a movie that pretty much melted my brain the first time I saw it. We have Christopher Nolan's Interstellar. Christopher Nolan is my favorite director and also favorite director working today, and all of his movies are great in my opinion, but to me, his crown jewel is still Interstellar. That may not be everyone's favorite Christopher Nolan movie, but this movie just absolutely hits every mark for me. I love the science fiction elements, I love the storytelling elements, and the way they blend together to tell a mind-blowing story of humanity and exploration across space and time is absolutely incredible and floors me every single time I watch it. Next, coming in at number 6, we have another movie that is near and dear to my heart, and that is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I don't usually go out of my way to see a movie a second or even a third time in the theaters unless the circumstances just work out that way. Usually I'm good with seeing it once, waiting for home release, and picking it up myself. But this is a movie I was immediately wanting to see again in theaters. I did end up getting to see this one twice in the theater. I don't remember the first time, but I remember the second time who I was with, and it was my brother and one of my close friends, and we absolutely loved it. This is by far a very neck and neck race of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War of the Planet of the Apes being my favorite in the trilogy, and obviously would make my list for top 10 favorites of all time, but I think the Dawn of the Planet of the Apes just edges out a little bit more than War because of the complex story and characters between Caesar and Koba. Their dynamic is excellent, and the way that they butt heads throughout this movie is great. I love War for the Planet of the Apes and the conclusion that they bring to Caesar's story, but I have a little bit of an extra special place in my heart for Dawn of the Planet of the Apes as well. And that gives it just the edge it needs to make my number 6 for top 10 favorite movie of all time. Now, before I give you my number 5 pick, make sure you comment down below with your favorite movies of all time. You can give me all 10 if you got it, or if you just got a couple, or even your favorite of all time, drop it in the comments below. I look forward to hearing what other people have to say and pick. Coming in at my number 5 spot for favorite movies of all time, another childhood favorite of mine, Spider-Man 2. The Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire Spider-Man trilogy still has an incredibly special place in my heart. I grew up watching these movies a whole bunch. I still remember first time I saw Spider-Man 1, it was the first PG-13 movie that I saw. Spider-Man 2, I still remember going to see in the theater with my grandfather. And Spider-Man 3, I still remember going to see in the theater with a bunch of friends for my birthday. And I love each and every movie in this trilogy for its own reasons, but Spider-Man 2 is the best of the bunch and finds its place at number 5 in my favorite movies of all time. Next, coming in at number 4, we have a Quentin Tarantino favorite of mine, Django Unchained. Now, Django Unchained and Inglourious Bastards continue to battle in my mind of which is my favorite of Tarantino's filmography, but Django Unchained just keeps coming out on top. I have an incredibly fun time every time I watch this movie. The story and characters are so engaging, while at the same time there's so much fun, camaraderie, and humor in a very serious story. And only Tarantino can blend those two things together. It's my favorite Western as well, and the way that we just get to see Tarantino play around with this genre and his love and appreciation for it as well just ooze off the screen in this movie and makes it one of my favorite movies of all time. As we near the end and our final 3, these definitely are the best of the bunch. All of the movies on this list I would give 5 out of 5 stars, but these top 3 have a very extra special place in my heart. First in the final 3, at 3rd spot, we have Ridley Scott's Alien. The Alien franchise is one of my favorite franchises to go back to, and the Alien, where it all began, is my favorite of the bunch. I have a lot of love and appreciation for Aliens and what James Cameron did with that, but I can't deny the craft and perfection that is the first Alien movie. Yes, it's a little bit of a slower burn and not quite as exciting until about halfway through, but that buildup of tension is immaculate. And I love the conversion that took place between Alien and Aliens. There's no denying the appreciation of the craft that is the original Alien movie. Ridley Scott did perfect direction when it came to the aesthetic, and H.R. Geiger's set work that came with all of the concepts and designs for the creature, the ships, all that kind of stuff. And of course, Sigourney Weaver's performance is absolutely incredible. She is one of my favorite character performances of all time in the role of Ripley. And though this franchise has kind of strayed from the path, it still has some solid hits, and the first one makes my list for favorite movies of all time. Almost finally, we have number 2, The Matrix. I have so much love for this movie. I literally consider it an absolutely perfect movie. It has no faults. This was the first rated R movie that I saw. I still remember sitting and watching with my dad for the first time. We finished it and I said, wow, that was a great movie. And that was the first rated R movie I've ever seen. He said, oh, I didn't know that was rated R. But this still is such a solid movie. The special effects hold up to this day. The action is still referred to in movies continuing to come out to this day. And though I haven't checked out The Matrix Reloaded or Revolutions just because of how bad I've heard they are, I think I'll get around to them eventually, because Matrix 4 coming out, I kind of need to know what happens in the middle of the two, and so I'm gonna check them out at some point. But The Matrix is one of my favorite action movies of all time. Keanu Reeves is one of my favorite actors that's working today, and this movie is an absolute masterpiece in my opinion. Now, I doubt this number one pick will come as a surprise to pretty much anyone who's familiar with my channel, but coming in first place for my favorite movie of all time is Lord of the Rings. Now, I kind of cheat a little bit on this and I consider the Lord of the Rings to be one movie. It is a cohesive story, so I consider them to be one film, the trilogy itself. But if I were to pick a favorite part in the trilogy, a lot of people go with Return of the King. And yes, I have limitless amount of love for The Two Towers and for Return of the King. But if I was to pick kind of my favorite of the three, I would go with The Fellowship of the Ring. Yes, the Battle of Helm's Deep is my favorite battle by far. And then there's some awesome story and action sequences in the latter movies as well. But Fellowship of the Ring, I just love seeing the Fellowship itself together. And though they're, dealing with all these issues and kind of as soon as they're formed, they're pretty much leading towards division, I just like seeing everyone together in the movies. Don't get me wrong, I don't not like the other movies because everyone's separate, but just being able to see everyone together kind of working as a unit, I like that. I really appreciate that. And I think the Fellowship of the Ring kind of has the most variety of the three movies, where you kind of get the happy fun of the Shire, along with the serious battles and the stakes that come with that. So I think it kind of has the best balance of a little bit of everything, whereas 2 and 3 are a little more serious, more focused on the battles and the serious stakes that are at hand. But of course, I love all three of these. Like I've said, I would consider Lord of the Rings one film to be my favorite film of all time, but if I had to play by my rules of favorite movies of all time, I'm going to pick The Fellowship of the Ring as my favorite movie of all time. So that wraps up my list of my 10 favorite movies of all time. I hope you enjoyed hearing my picks and kind of my reasoning behind them. Each of them is very personal for me, and I would love to hear what your picks are for your favorite movies of all time. As I mentioned earlier, it can be all 10, can be just a few, or your favorite. I would love to hear your picks as well as why, because that's the most important thing to me. So comment that down below. I look forward to seeing your picks, and I'll see you in the next video.